We spend most of our lives trying to predict, plan, and protect ourselves from the unknown. But what if the very thing we're running from, uncertainty, is the doorway to our deepest growth? The unknown self is the part of you that doesn't fit into your self-image, the part that holds untapped strength, creativity, and wisdom. It emerges only when the old identity no longer works, when life strips away your certainties and demands that you step into something raw, unfamiliar, and real. In those moments of emotional chaos and inner collapse, you meet the edge of who you thought you were, and get the chance to become who you truly are. The unknown is not your enemy, it's the space where your transformation begins, and the more you learn to sit with that uncertainty, the stronger, freer, and more whole you become. We're taught to crave stability, to seek out the predictable, and to build lives that feel safe, but in doing so, we often construct psychological comfort zones that act like invisible prisons. Comfort zones feel warm and reassuring on the surface, but beneath them they slowly suffocate your growth. The moment you choose comfort over truth, you begin to shrink, and it happens so gradually, so subtly, that you don't even realize you're losing your vitality, your voice, your edge. Inner evolution is uncomfortable by nature. It demands friction. It requires moments of rupture, those experiences that shake your identity, dissolve old patterns, and push you into the raw unknown. The deeper truth is nothing alive stays stagnant. Just like muscles atrophy when not used, your soul begins to deteriorate when you stay emotionally or spiritually idle. The comfort zone tells you that you're safe, but often what it really means is that you're stuck. You avoid the difficult conversation, you suppress the deeper question, you silence the intuitive voice that's begging for change, all in service of not disturbing the peace. But that peace is often a lie. It's not harmony, it's emotional deadness. The cost of staying comfortable is your authenticity. When you lock yourself in patterns that feel familiar, you also protect the very parts of you that need to evolve. Your wounds, your fears, your limiting beliefs, they all stay hidden, undisturbed. But healing doesn't happen in silence. It happens in chaos, in movement, in challenge, in the breakdown that forces you to confront everything you've been avoiding. Growth is violent to the ego. It breaks illusions, it calls out your false identities, and it humbles you. But it's through that humbling that you access your real strength. Every time you step beyond the comfort zone, you meet a part of yourself you didn't know existed. You face fear and realize you survived it. You take a risk and discover resilience. You lose what you thought you needed and uncover what truly matters. That's the process of inner evolution, the repeated death of false selves, and the rebirth of deeper truths. People often confuse inner peace with the absence of conflict, but true peace comes after the storm, after the upheaval that shatters the fragile illusions you were hiding behind. And that storm always begins when you leave the comfort zone. That's when you start to realize your anxiety wasn't the enemy, it was a signal. Your depression wasn't weakness, it was a cry from the soul. Your confusion wasn't a flaw, it was the invitation to meet your deeper self. But you can't receive any of that wisdom if you're hiding in routine, numbing yourself with distractions, or clinging to old versions of yourself out of fear. The comfort zone will never teach you who you are. It will only teach you how to survive, how to conform, how to please, how to stay unnoticed. But your soul wasn't made to survive, it was made to expand. And that expansion only happens when you dare to cross the edge of your known self into the wild, uncertain space where your real transformation waits. If you're feeling lost or restless or stuck right now, maybe it's not a sign that something's wrong. Maybe it's a sign that something new is trying to be born inside you. But birth is always messy. It comes with labor, with fear, with intensity, and yet it's sacred. The moment you stop protecting your comfort and start protecting your truth, you become dangerous to everything that's been holding you back, and that's exactly when your evolution begins. We're raised to believe that control equals safety, that the more you can manage, predict, and direct your emotions, your thoughts, your relationships, the more secure and successful you'll be. But this belief becomes a trap. It feeds the illusion that the self is something you can design and perfect through discipline and willpower. In reality, the more you try to control yourself, the more you disconnect from who you truly are. Your real identity doesn't live inside neat boxes or curated versions of yourself. It lives in the parts of you that resist control, your instincts, your creativity, your irrational fears, your spontaneous desires. The true self is wild, unpredictable, and profoundly alive. The need to control is rooted in fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of abandonment, and so you begin shaping yourself into someone who can be accepted, admired, or at least tolerated. You suppress your anger to seem kind. You hide your sadness to appear strong. You filter your truth so you won't be rejected. Over time, you don't even realize that the you you're presenting to the world is a carefully constructed persona built not for authenticity, but for survival. And the tragedy is, this mask becomes so familiar that you begin mistaking it for your real face. But there comes a point when the cost of control becomes too heavy. You feel exhausted, anxious, disconnected. You might look successful on the outside but feel hollow inside. That's the sign. The controlled version of you isn't sustainable. Because what you're really doing is denying your soul the space to breathe. Your true identity isn't found in what you can manage. It's found in what you allow. You have to allow your pain, Allow your longing. Allow the voice inside you that doesn't make logical sense but feels undeniably real. Letting go of control isn't about becoming reckless, it's about becoming honest. It means having the courage to feel what you feel, even if it's inconvenient. It means surrendering to the unknown instead of forcing clarity. It means showing up raw, messy, and unedited, instead of polished and distant. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You begin to rediscover yourself, not as an idea but as an experience. Your true identity reveals itself in moments of surrender. In the middle of heartbreak when you're no longer performing strength. In creative flow when you lose the need to be perfect. In solitude when you're no longer trying to impress. In grief when you finally let yourself break open. These are the moments when the mask slips and the soul speaks. And the more you trust that process, the more whole you become. Control is about outcomes, but the soul doesn't care about outcomes. It cares about alignment. The question isn't are you winning, it's are you real? And being real sometimes means feeling lost, feeling unsure, feeling undone. But those are sacred places, because that's where your false identities begin to dissolve. That's where the old stories lose their grip. That's where you finally make space for the self you were always meant to become. If you want to find who you truly are, stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to master every emotion or force every decision. Instead, listen. Let the discomfort speak. Let the fear rise. Let the silence deepen. Because somewhere in that openness, in that deep surrender, your authentic self will start to whisper, and what it says may not always make sense, but it will feel like truth. It will feel like freedom. It will feel like home. You are more than your achievements, more than your traumas, more than your image, and all of those versions of you that are built on control. They're not you. They're armor. Useful for survival, but not for awakening. If you want to truly live, you have to risk unraveling. That's where the truth lives, beyond the script, beyond the plan, beyond control. That's where you begin again, as your real self. We're taught to fear falling apart. Society rewards those who seem put together. Those who are always in control, always composed, always moving forward. But here's a hidden truth most people don't realize until it's too late. The self must fall apart before it can transform. Disintegration isn't failure, it's initiation. It's the breaking down of everything false so that something true can emerge. The pain of disintegration is not punishment. It's a necessary collapse of the old identity that no longer serves your growth. Most of us build identities based on what we think will keep us safe, being the good child, the high achiever, the helper, the loner. These roles serve a purpose in childhood, but they become prisons in adulthood. When life begins to challenge these roles, through heartbreak, depression, failure, loss, you may feel like you're breaking, but what's actually happening is deeper. You're being stripped of illusions. You're being returned to your raw essence, to the parts of you that were buried beneath survival strategies. Disintegration feels terrifying because you're losing your grip on who you thought you were. You question everything, your goals, your beliefs, your relationships, your self-worth. You might feel empty, unmotivated, or lost, but this inner death is sacred. It clears the space for rebirth. The psyche doesn't evolve through comfort, it evolves through rupture. Something inside you knows that in order to truly grow, the old must die. And this death doesn't happen politely. It's chaotic, emotional, and deeply uncomfortable. But the breakdown is intelligent. The pain knows what it's doing. It's dismantling the false self, the persona, the shadow that's been hidden. In this state of disintegration, your ego loses power, and while that loss feels like destruction, it's actually liberation, because once the ego steps aside, the unconscious begins to surface, the real work begins, the wounds rise, the fears scream, but so does the potential, so does the truth that's been waiting to emerge from underneath your defensive armor. Transformation begins where identity ends. You can't transform into your higher self while clinging to outdated stories about who you are. The version of you that was shaped by people-pleasing, perfectionism, fear, and shame must be released. But that release doesn't happen through logic. It happens through emotional surrender. You grieve, you rage, you fall, and in the falling you uncover strength that never depended on your mask. You begin to sense a deeper self, one that isn't built but revealed. In mythology and spiritual traditions, disintegration always comes before rebirth. The phoenix must burn before it can rise. The seed must crack open in the dark soil before it becomes a tree. You are no different. Your darkness has purpose. Your falling apart is sacred. It's life rearranging you from the inside, so that you can hold more light, more truth, more freedom. The suffering isn't random. It's an alchemical fire. But here's the key. Don't rush it. Don't try to fix yourself the moment things start breaking down. Let the disintegration do its work. Sit with it. Feel it fully. Let it humble you. Let it empty you. Because the emptiness is fertile ground. The you that comes after the collapse will not be a better version of the old self. It will be a completely different self. One that's aligned, awake, and deeply rooted in authenticity. You're not meant to be the same person forever. Growth demands loss. Evolution requires letting go. If you feel like your world is falling apart, don't panic. Pay attention. You are in the middle of something holy. trust the falling, trust the undoing, because in that space where everything breaks, the soul begins to speak, and what it reveals is not just healing, it's transformation, the kind that changes everything, the kind that brings you home. The moment you stop demanding certainty and begin trusting the unknown, you enter a dimension of power that most people never touch. Society conditions you to seek control, to have a plan, a backup plan, and a safety net. But real power isn't about control, it's about surrender. It's about learning to stand inside the chaos of life without losing your center. Trusting the unknown doesn't mean you'll always be safe, it means you're no longer ruled by fear. It means you've learned to anchor yourself not in what's predictable, but in what's true. When you trust the unknown, you stop needing the world to constantly reassure you. You stop outsourcing your worth to external validation, outcomes, or approval. You begin living from the inside out. This shift changes everything. Suddenly, discomfort doesn't feel like danger. Change doesn't feel like threat. Failure doesn't feel like death. Instead, you meet every experience, especially the unpredictable ones, with curiosity, openness, and inner stillness. This is where your real strength begins. Most people live inside a mental fortress built out of control. They avoid risks, silence their instincts, and numb their emotions because uncertainty terrifies them. But what they're really avoiding is their own power, because once you stop demanding certainty, you step into freedom. You stop asking what will happen to me, and start asking who am I becoming. That single shift makes you unshakable. Life stops being a script you follow and becomes an adventure you shape through presence, courage, and intuition. Trusting the unknown doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you no longer obey it. You let fear ride in the car, but it doesn't drive. You stop letting the anxious mind control the narrative. Instead, you drop into a deeper intelligence, the kind that speaks through the body, through instinct, through quiet knowing. You start feeling the difference between ego fear and soul guidance. One screams and panics, the other whispers and expands. You learn to follow the whisper. The unknown is not your enemy, it's your mirror. It reflects back how much you trust yourself, how deeply you're willing to let go, and how committed you are to growth. Every time you walk into the unknown, you shed an old identity. You release the part of you that only felt safe when it had all the answers, and in its place, something wild and resilient grows. You become fluid, flexible, alive. That's what makes you powerful, not control but presence. Think of the people you admire most, not for their status but their spirit, the ones who radiate something unshakable. Chances are they've walked through fires they couldn't predict. They've let life unravel them. They've faced uncertainty and chosen to move forward anyway. That's not luck, that's trust. Trust in themselves, trust in the process, trust that even if everything falls apart, something wiser will emerge on the other side. This kind of power can't be faked. It's not about affirmations or positivity. It's about depth. It's about having faced the unknown so many times that it no longer scares you. It humbles you. It becomes sacred. You begin to understand that the unknown is where life actually lives. It's where magic hides. It's where your next evolution waits. And the only price of entry is surrender. When you live this way, fear doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It becomes fuel. Every step into the unknown becomes a reminder that you are not here to survive. You are here to awaken. You're here to grow a soul that's bigger than your ego. To build a life that's rooted in authenticity, not safety. You realize that everything you've ever wanted, clarity, peace, purpose, isn't found by tightening your grip but by loosening it. So if you're standing on the edge of the unknown, trembling with doubt, remember this: you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Don't run back to the familiar just because it's easy. Don't shrink just because your path isn't clear. Stand your ground, breathe, listen, and take the next step, even if you can't see the one after that, because that's how power is built, not all at once but one sacred, courageous step at a time. The unknown doesn't make you powerless, it makes you real. It burns away what's false and reveals what's eternal. That's your gift, that's your edge, that's your strength.